Sometimes it's not a big battle or some fancy treaty that changes the course of history. Sometimes it all comes down to a single, secret document. A report so top secret its very existence was just a rumor, but its contents would give one side an almost unbeatable edge in the sky. So let's get into the story behind that very document. So here it is. And yeah, on the surface, it looks like just another one of those dense, declassified government reports, right? Full of technical jargon. But Have Doughnut was so much more. It was the final piece of one of the most daring intelligence operations of the entire Cold War. It literally held the secrets to the enemy's most feared weapon in the sky. The MiG-21. You gotta understand, for Western pilots, this thing was basically a ghost. It was lightning fast, incredibly agile, and the Soviets were giving them to their allies all over the world, especially in the Middle East. But what could it really do? What were its strengths? And more importantly, what were its weaknesses? Nobody really knew. And if you wanted to beat it, well, you first had to figure out what you were up against. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? This report isn't just theory or guesswork based on grainy satellite photos. Nope. It's based on American test pilots actually flying a real, honest-to-God MiG-21. Because the story of how they got it, man, it is straight out of a spy movie. Well, the answer doesn't actually come from the CIA, which you might expect. It comes from Israel's legendary intelligence agency, the Mossad. They launched this multi-year, incredibly high-stakes mission with just one goal: get us a MiG-21. The codename they gave it was Operation Diamond. And look, this mission was just unbelievably risky from the get-go. Their first few attempts were total disasters. I mean, the first try in Egypt, it ended with agents being caught and executed. A second attempt in Iraq just fizzled out when the pilots they approached said no. The price of failure was literally death. But the prize, a fully intact MiG, was worth any risk. So after all those failures, years of them, Mossad finally found their guy, Captain Munir Redfa. This wasn't some rookie. He was one of Iraq's best pilots, trusted with their most advanced fighter jet. But he was also a guy who was deeply conflicted, and that, right there, made him the perfect target. So why on earth would a decorated pilot betray his own country? Well, it turns out Redfa had this potent cocktail of grievances bubbling up. For one, he was a Christian, and he felt his career was completely stalled because of it. On top of that, he was given orders to bomb Kurdish civilians, and his conscience couldn't handle it. His commanders, probably sensing he was unhappy, didn't fully trust him either. The guy was just looking for a way out. So Mossad comes in and makes him an offer that is frankly impossible to refuse. $1 million. And you have to remember, this is 1966 we're talking about. That was a mind-boggling amount of money. Plus, they offered him and his family Israeli citizenship and a guaranteed job for life. They were offering him a whole new future. But here's where the whole thing gets incredibly complicated. Redfa had one condition that was non-negotiable. It wasn't just about him and his plane. He demanded that Mossad smuggle his entire extended family out of Iraq first. His wife, kids, parents, everyone. And this side mission almost blew up the entire operation. Get this, his wife, Betty, had been told absolutely nothing. She's taken to a safe house in Paris, where they finally tell her she's not going home, she's going to Israel. She was so shocked she threatened to run straight to the Iraqi embassy. Somehow, though, they pulled it off. The mission was a success. On August 16, 1966, Captain Redfa took off in his MiG-21, flew across Jordan, and landed it on an airstrip in Israel. Just like that, the intelligence floodgates swung wide open. And that brings us right back to where we started, the Have Doughnut report. Because this document, it's the direct result of that single, daring flight. Okay, so before we dive into what they found, we gotta wrap our heads around a key concept they use all over this report: energy maneuverability. Now, this isn't just about who's faster or who can turn tighter. It's way more sophisticated. It's about the total energy state of the plane, how it trades speed for height and height for speed, all while pulling G's in a dogfight. Really understanding this was the secret to cracking the MiG's code. All right, so what did they find when they finally got inside this mystery jet? Well, their first impressions were not great. American pilots climbed into the cockpit and basically found a cluttered mess. And the report doesn't pull any punches. It calls the cockpit design flat out poor. It just wasn't a machine built with the pilot in mind. So let's get to the tail of the tape, the MiG-21 versus America's top dog at the time, the F-4 Phantom. Okay, so if you got into a slow, turning knife fight, the MiG had you beat. It was a monster in a tight circle. But the F-4 had it completely dominated in raw power and acceleration. The big takeaway was crystal clear. Whatever you do, do not get into a slow, turning fight with a MiG. And beyond that, the pilot's visibility was terrible. You could barely see behind you. And believe me, the list of weaknesses just kept on growing. That poor visibility created a massive 50-degree blind spot right behind the pilot. Its cannon only had 60 rounds of ammo, which is next to nothing in a dogfight. The engine was sluggish, taking a full 14 seconds to go from idle to full power, and its simple radar was a sitting duck for electronic jamming. These weren't just minor quirks, These are basically giant kick-me signs painted on the side of the plane, vulnerabilities you could absolutely exploit. Now, this kind of intelligence is gold. It wasn't just stuck in a filing cabinet somewhere. Oh no, it was immediately turned into a brand new set of rules for air combat. The Have Doughnut report became the literal playbook on how to fight and win against the MiG-21. So the playbook they came up with was incredibly specific. It was like, okay, pilots, here's exactly what you're going to do. 1, keep the fight low and fast. 2, use your superior power. Never get slow and start turning with him. 3, attack from behind, right in that huge 50-degree blind spot. 4, use hit-and-run tactics. Dive in, take your shot, and get out fast. This was a recipe for victory, and it was written using the enemy's own jet. The impact of this one spy mission, well, it was immediate, and it was absolutely massive. It didn't just give pilots an edge in a dogfight, it completely tipped the strategic balance of power, not just in the Middle East, but way beyond. And if you want proof, here it is. Less than a year after Redfa landed that MiG in Israel, on April 7, 1967, the Israeli Air Force puts the new playbook to the test against Syrian MiGs. The result? They shot down 6 of them and lost 0 of their own. The theory wasn't theory anymore. It was combat-proven fact. I mean, when you step back and look at it, the legacy of that one single flight is just staggering. It gave Israel total air superiority in the Six-Day War just a couple of months later. That MiG was then loaned to the U.S., which cemented the U.S.-Israel alliance, and that cooperation directly led to the U.S. selling Israel the F-4 Phantom, the very plane that now had the perfect playbook to kill MiGs. The decision of one pilot literally reshaped the region for decades. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The Have Doughnut report was kept secret for decades before we ever got to see it, and it leaves you with this one last thought. How many other stories just like this one, these incredible operations that completely shifted the course of events, are still locked away in some dusty government archive, just waiting for their declassification date?